accountant undid the deal.
Oh, great. That's exactly what. They're such deal killers, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's what I'm guessing.
All right. Maybe you can hear me better now.
Yeah, actually, that works really great.
Sorry, it sounded like I was talking over myself. But yeah, he was really stoked about it, the owner, who wanted to sell, and then he sent it to his accountant, and his accountant said that I should talk to him about doing it the opposite way. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. He wanted 312,000 down. I'm like, dude,
Are you
that's
kidding
not
me?
going to.
Wow. Sometimes it's so frustrating because, they're sitting in their little offices crunching everybody else's deals, but they don't know what's really gonna make something work. So, too
Yeah.
bad.
So
Too bad.
yeah. Well, thanks for your help on that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start as other people join or listen afterwards is probably more likely. So let's see. This is our April 5th meeting of transaction review and calculator practice. Anyway, so this was a real deal. One of our members, his name's Gage Edwards, and he brought me a question about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and a situation that I think is fairly representative of some of the confusion that many new people have when they're starting to learn about notes. So I decided to take his question and kind of the process that we went through on that for today's transaction review. And then at the end, if anyone has any other deals that we want to talk about, we can crunch those over after this as well. And anyway, next slide. So what happened is he's studying. He got his real estate license, and he really wants to hit the seller financing and note conversation. So he's talking to a hard money lender guy in his area, and that lender wanted to know if there was a secondary market for 70% loan to value notes. So what he was making it sound like to Gage, excuse me, is that he wanted to transition, his short-term hard money lending business into at least some more long-term product. Let's say, 12% interest only over 7 years instead of his typical 15% due in 9 months. And so, but I wasn't sure. I guess my first question to Gage was, well, so is he lending money still, or is he lending equity via an owner carry arrangement to the investors? Meaning, are they just trying to do this lending model and then sell off the notes at par? Or are they going to switch and actually use their capital to buy property and then sell owner financing to the investors instead and lend them the equity that way and then have an exit strategy? So he wasn't really sure, and it was kind of foggy in his mind for a while. But then after we talked just for a few minutes and had a couple emails, all of a sudden the light bulb went on. So if someone's lending money, if they're just doing a loan, a lender, a hard money lender, even a conventional lender, usually they can't take much of a discount, and we'll go over the numbers in this presentation. But if they buy the property with their own money and then carry back paper for the buyer, then they usually have more profit to work with and can factor in a discount on a note, and it still makes sense for them financially. Um, so, so for instance, now lending money. Now this is, if you go back to that one Star of David, that six-pointed star that's kind of my map of the world. This is the lending money on the primary market. You're originating money. Okay, and if you're lending your equity, you're also originating on the primary market, but then you're selling to someone on the secondary market. You want out. I guess it's already, if you lend money and you want out, that's, you're looking for a secondary note buyer too. But let's just look at the numbers. I think some of it's obvious, but I've been surprised lately by how much this isn't so 100% clear to people. So let's say the after repaired value (ARV) of a property is $100,000. But so what this hard money lender is doing is, so what they're doing is saying, look, we'll lend you 100% of the purchase price plus rehab costs. So these investors that want to buy a property, they don't have to come out any money out of pocket. They just got to find the deal and put in the labor and then flip it around at the end of it. So in exchange for that, now I don't, I wouldn't do this kind of lending. This is on the risky side for me. Not my business model, but I guess some people do this. But in exchange, they're asking for 15% interest only on their money. The term is 9 months usually, so there would be a monthly payment of 875 that investor would somehow need to pay, or I don't know, maybe they just say make it a lump payment at the end, like a straight note. Then there would be a $70,000 balloon. This is where they make their money right here on the points and the fees. So let's say if they charged 5 points, then for this $70,000 loan, they're going to make $3,500. So, but they need all their principal back because this is money they've taken probably from some local investor that is not going to lend them money just to lend them 70,000 just to get back 60,000, right? So they need all this capital back, and this is all the profit. Their only profit is in the points and fees when making the loan and a spread on the money each month. So probably maybe they keep 80 or 150 bucks a month out of this. Maybe they have 12% money from their investors and they're charging 15, so maybe they have a 3% spread there. So all told, they might be only making in 9 months maybe $4,500 on this deal. Okay. If they were lending equity instead, if they bought a property for 50,000 and then they sold it for 100,000, and they took a down payment from an investor, so that would leave them with a 70,000 note. So we can see this is a 70% loan to value note. This is also a 70% loan to value note. These are way different. I mean, to me, look at this, $0 down payment, and here's 30,000 down payment. That's huge in terms of skin in the game for the investor. Here, yeah, they could, if something goes south and they can't pay this note, they're going to walk away from their blood, sweat, and tears, but no hard-earned cash out of their pocket. This person's going to really think hard before they walk away, right? So it's much stronger note. Let's say we even said a 5-year note, interest only, at 10% with 583.33 a month, and this is where anyway. So and then the balloon in 5 years, 70,000. There's no points, but then they would have a $50,000 profit they're working with, right? They bought it for 50. They're only in it for 50, and they're selling it for 100,000. This is just hypothetically speaking. And they already have 30,000 from the buyer, so they already have 30,000 out of their 50 grand out of pocket back already. So now there's some room for a discount in this note over here and they'll still make a profit, whereas over here there's just no room. All they're making is 4,000 or 4,500 total on that deal. So okay, so let's just make sure that everybody's up to speed. I'm gonna clear everything. Let's see, clear all. All right, so this is in a day developments HP10B2 financial calculator that I like. I got the desktop version because I love the iPhone version. It's also good on other mobile devices like iPads and things like that, but I really love their calculator. Anyway, so just calculating this, just want you guys to know how easy it is to calculate these. So if they're doing their hard money lending, 70,000, and it's 15% interest, all we got to do is take 70,000 times 0.15, right? Percentages translate into decimal points by moving the decimal point to the left 2 places. So that's 10,500. That's the interest that's due for the whole year. So 10 or 15% interest per year. So now to get per month, we just divide by 12. Okay, sorry if this is really too elemental, but just don't want to leave anyone behind. So it's 875, that's where we get it. Then with the balloon, since it's interest only, the principal doesn't reduce at all, so the balloon's the same amount. Then over here, if they, obviously it's kind of the same deal, right? 70,000 times, instead of 0.15, we say 0.10, and that's how we get 583.33 a month, okay, with the same balloon. All right, now next one. Okay, so here's the deal that we were just talking about, right? From this is the same as this right here. Here's the deal as this hard money lender is thinking of what they want a note buyer to come in at, right? Or no, this is just pretending as if they were owner carrying, right? Okay, so let's see what could be possible. If they were owner carrying, taking $30,000 down and carrying back a $70,000 note, here's some of my first questions. Wow, they're making a huge profit margin. Why? That makes me a little, how can they really buy something for 50 all in and sell it for twice that? Is the market really there? Is that an inflated number? I would do an independent BPO or broker price opinion or appraisal just to make sure it's really there. Maybe did they do shoddy work? Did they not do any rehab? I would want to know, like, this stands out to me like, raises my eyebrow. Did they put any money to fix it up, and what were those costs? I would say, oh, well, this is a decent down payment, 30% down payment on an investor note. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I like more like 40 or 50% down. I mean, just my super sweet spot, but that's very decent. But still, I want to know the financial strength of the payer, because how is he going to get out of this balloon in 5 years? If he's only paying this minimum payment every year, how's he getting out of this? Does he have some cash portfolio? Does he have some CD maturing? Does he have super strong credit so that I know, but I don't know. Even with strong credit, can we be sure that the availability of attractive financing is going to be there? What if all of a sudden interest rates are skyrocketed? What if they're up to I don't know, double digits again, like they were in the 70s or 80s or whatever? So I'd really want to know what's the exit strategy, because the last thing I want is to have to foreclose or to extend the terms, because that would ruin my yield. It would just squash it. All right. I like to stay at 50% of the value of a property. In some instances, I might inch up closer to 60%, but that's true whether I'm lending money through the front door or I'm buying a discounted note through the back door. The underwriting is really pretty similar. Just a few different factors to think about. So if I were going to buy it, right, then, and this is the deal, same, I would say, okay, my maximum ITV, or investment to value maximum, is 50%. So I take the value of the property. This has to really comp out. It has to appraise. And then I would say times 0.50. And then, right, so 100,000 times 0.50, that's 50%. Okay, that's my maximum investment amount, my investment maximum, that based on the value of this property, that's the most I can expose myself. So I already know that. That's just one of those little things I calculate and put on the shelf. And now I go and look at yield. Let's say if I'm going to hang out for 5 years, I'm going to want a 15% yield, because we know that inflation is truly at more of a 9 or 10% right now. And if it goes up from there, I don't want to be stuck. What if inflation goes to 20%? Then I'm stuck with a 15% note, So I'm going to want at least this, maybe even more. Okay, so let me put 15% is the yield that I want. And we know the term is 60. So I'm putting it in here. Okay, the N. And then I know the payment is 583. That's entered as a negative number. And then we know at the end of that, 5 years is a $70,000 balloon. That's entered as a negative number too. See, these two numbers are money coming to us. This money is coming every month. this money is coming at the end of this term. So at the end of 60 months, I get 70,000. Each month, I get 583.33, and I want a 15% yield. So based on my yield requirement, my desired yield, let me press PV and see how much I theoretically would pay for this note. So if I'm just going off of yield, yeah, I will pay 57,739. Okay, so well, that's higher. So at least now I know I can pay the 50, which is my top. I can't pay more than 50 no matter what. It's not a yield conversation. The 50,000 is my stopgap for just risk management. Now, but if this number would have been like 45,000, then whichever number is lower is the one I'm going to stick with, right? So based on, I'm going to only pay 50,000. I'll put that in. Now I solved her. Okay, so what's my yield going to be? So I press that to solve for it. So my yield, if I buy that $70,000 note for 50,000, my yield will be 1887, and that's nice. I like that. I'd be okay hanging out with that for 5 years. Okay, so the owner, that seller, who the hard money lender, if they became sellers, like they bought property instead, here's how they would fare with that. They would get their down payment of $30,000, and they'd sell the note to me for 50,000, so they'd get a total of 80,000, and they put out of pocket 50,000, so their profit is 30,000. So then they can take that and do it again and again and again, right? So they're not doing bad. They're leaving 20,000 on the table, but that's better than not being able to get out of that deal at all. So that's potentially how that could work if it was the owner carry thing. Just to recap, okay? If the guy's lending money, $100,000 property, zero down payment, investors have no skin in the game, okay? Except to lose a profit and some sweat off their back. The notes there, here's the profit, 3,500, maybe a little more, okay? Their only profit is in the points or fees when making the loan and a spread on the money each month. These guys cannot take a discount. Mostly they have to sell at par, meaning they need to sell a $70,000 note for 70,000. If they sold it for 69,000, now their profit on this deal is only 2,500 or something like that. Okay, now, but if they're lending equity because they own the property, okay, we went through these numbers, then they have a potential profit sitting on the table of 50,000. These guys can afford to take a discount and it still makes sense financially. Okay, going on. So then gauge, I said gauge, so are they lending or are they buying property and then creating notes that way? And he goes, I don't know. So he emailed them and asked them based on our conversation that we had. And this is what the response from the hard money guys. Thanks, Gage. Here's a brief overview of what we're thinking. Our typical fix and flip loans work like this. We would loan up to 70% of the after repair value, ARV, of the home. For example, if the property after fix up was valued at 100, our loan amount would be 70,000. Our interest rate is 15%, and we require monthly interest-only payments with a balloon in 9 months. As part of this loan, we hold the funds required for repairs in a repair escrow account, and those funds are dispersed as work is completed. So, for example, if the house was purchased for $55,000 but needed $15,000 in repairs, we would loan the full $70,000, and we would keep the $15,000 in a repair escrow until the repairs were complete. At the end of the repairs, the borrower would then have a home worth $100,000. Borrower's gross margin on flip would be $25,000. But what's the problem with that? They have to be able to flip it. Right now, it's really, really hard in a lot of areas for buyers to get financing. So this profit is only good if they can really quickly turn this around to a buyer who can qualify for conventional or FHA type financing. So I'm guessing the hard money lenders are going, okay, but we need another exit strategy because we want our money back out. That's what I'm thinking this whole conversation is about. They're trying to figure out how can we, instead of just making the investor sell this property to get out, what if, we want someone else just to get us our money back out, right? That's in my mind, one of the biggest reasons they're doing it. With a fix and hold loan, what if they're saying this investor doesn't want to sell the property, he wants to keep it for cash flow. Let's say there's a nice maybe $1,200 a month in rent coming in. We want to offer our standard, he wants to keep it at 70% after ARV, after repaired value loan for 9 months at the 15. Then they want to, after that 9 months, we want the loan to convert to a 3 or 5 year loan at a lower interest rate, like 10%, but they don't want to stay in for that. They want out at that point when it's not making 15%. And they want that money, they want that 70,000 back so they can turn it around and charge their points, right? That's how they make money. We're still thinking interest-only payments. I don't like interest-only payments. Personally, I at least make a 30-year amortization so that there is some protective equity building every month with every monthly payment and the loan balance is going down. To keep the borrower in the loan for the term, we could also require a prepayment penalty of 2% for the first 2 years or so. Now, this is what they're really say. Really, all we care about is the first 9 months. Okay, they don't really want a long-term product for themselves. They're not trying to make more money. They just want their exit strategy, whether or not that seller is, or that investor is successful in flipping the property or not. We're happy to have the end note buyer dictate the terms they would like to see. For example, it convert to a longer term principal and interest loan at a lower rate of 8%. And I'm going, huh? I think 10% was low enough. Why would I take the same risk and all of a sudden do 8% instead? I mean, well, why? Anyway. So we'll talk about that a little more in a second, kind of some of the mindset. But and he's just saying, hey, we'll let you guys dictate, whatever terms you want. I'm going, well, that's fine. It doesn't look like, but here's what they're saying, okay, side by side. We want our short-term loan, right? We already saw these numbers, 875. We get our 70,000 back when the investor flips it to an end buyer, like an owner occupant with FHA financing, or a note buyer that takes us out. We get our 3,500 points, we get our spread, then we get our money back to do another deal and charge more points again. But they want someone else to come in for the very same risk. It's this very same risk, right? 0 down payment from the owner, same loan amount. Except they just want you to take, instead of 15% like they want you to take 10%. And instead of a 9-month term, they want you to hang out for 60 months, much more exposure to inflation, to downturns in the market, all sorts of things. You're just much more exposed. The monthly payment's lower, same risk, lower return. Anyway, much more risk here. So they're saying we're taking this risk only because we're charging 5 points and 15%, but we want someone else to come in and take over for much less money and greater risk. And I'm just going, why? Okay, because when this balloon, let's say in 5 years, this guy says, I don't have the money to pay off this balloon, and I can't get financing, or it's just not available, or it's like 15% or something ridiculous, right? So he can't get it. Or, so now he's going, so I got to sell the property. And by then, will the market still even be here at 100? What if it's dropped 20%? And now we're going to be lucky to sell the property and just clear the loan after closing costs, right? Or what if it's dropped 30%? Oh my God, now if I have to foreclose, now I'm losing money on this deal, right? So there's a really high risk right here that this 60-month balloon isn't going to pan out. So let's just see what that would do to my yield. So if I bought this trusting that in 60 months I'm going to get, yeah, sure, I've got an 18.87% yield if this all works out. But what if this guy can't get finance? Either I got to foreclose on the property or I got to extend the term. So what if I give him another 2 years? So what's 2 more years? 24. So let's say I extend. So now I've put up this 50,000. Now it's to 84. Keep everything else the same. Now what's my yield done? Now it's 17. Okay, not too bad. But what if he never is. What if 10 years? Let's say 120. If it takes 120 months, I keep doing a loan modification and extending. See, I'm going lower and lower and lower. My risk is actually higher. There's just a high risk that what's happening on this balloon, especially if there hasn't been any principal pay down. I'd be much more comfortable if by the time they got to the balloon that they owed quite a bit less, so that it's easier for the property to qualify or for them to qualify to get a loan or to sell it or whatever. So I wouldn't really do this. So is there any comments, questions? Anyone want me to unmute them? Just make a little chat button note to me, okay? See, the reason I don't like this is this. 0 down payment. Don't like it at all. And here's the conversation that so many people try to pitch to me. Well, gosh, people are making 1% or 0.5%, or losing money in mutual funds, or they're making hardly anything in CDs and these other, traditional products. So they should be really, really happy. They should really be happy to get this 10% right here, or even 8%. They should be, but it's just much, much, much higher risk. But a lot of people think that, that even a guy I was just talking to a couple days ago, he's in Las Vegas, and he has this deal where the property's worth $110,000, and he wants someone to come in and buy him out at $90,000. So what are we talking there? Gosh, 82 or something like that. Loan to value right there. That represents maybe an 8%, 9% yield, and he's going, that's a really good yield compared to all the other things, like a CD in the bank. Yeah, but it's also a lot more risky. They could lose a lot of money, just like they could lose in the stock market. I think it's pretty risky right now. But there's a lot of people with this idea that there should be tons of money for these great returns, but they're not anyone who understands the risk and the extra amount of work it takes to buy a note and be a private lender, none of them are going to take this kind of risk for these yields. I mean, if they do, it's because either the person paying on the note has a really high, I would say, reputation equity, there's some other thing in the deal to sweeten it, or they're really naive and desperate and been sold a bill of goods. I mean, to me, that's the reality of it. So I wouldn't really do this at all the way. So then I thought, well, what would I do? Okay, so ostensibly speaking, if I was creating this for something that I might consider, subject to all my due diligence, here's a couple examples. But they both involve the investor who owns the property coming in with some cash. Not just blood, sweat, and tears. I want their own hard-earned money at stake, at risk in this property. So here's how I would, in fact, I didn't think of this, and I didn't tell Gage this while we were conversing on it, but as I was preparing for this presentation tonight, it occurred to me that, hey, maybe I could customize something that might interest me, and this is how I did it. Okay, so the value of the property is $100,000. I'm going to take that $70,000 note. Now, this is not an owner carry note where there's profit that they can cut into. This is a lender's cash private money loan. But I'm still only going to buy it for $50,000, and we already know that they can't take this discount. So hold with me for a minute. But I'm going to buy the $70,000 note for $50,000. If the buyer then brings in $20,000, now that does two things. This gives them skin in the game. This $20,000 also keeps this lender whole. They need their $70,000 back, but I'll only give them $50,000. But I'll give them $50,000 if the buyer will give them $20,000, so that they get all their money and this person has skin in the game. Then that's a much better deal to me. That's something I could think of living with. So then this pays off the lender $70,000. I would have to be really super sure of the value, and then based on the numbers, what's that, 583 a month and 20,000 out of pocket, they'd have to do their cash on cash returns to make sure it's worth it, given how much, I don't know what their property's renting for, or what kind of vacancy rates they have, or whatever. So, but if the numbers worked, I could work with that. Okay. So I buy the note for 50,000. They bring in 20. They have 10% equity. It's basically like getting the property for $90,000. And then now the other thing, what if they don't have $20,000? Okay, then I would be thinking, well, what if they could at least get 10% down, or $10,000? There's still this first note that needs to be paid off. So they'll bring in 10,000, and I'll bring in 60,000 to make up the 70. Only if something like this, I actually own the property. It's not like I'm the lender and I have to foreclose if there's a default. I would say, you, Mr. Investor, are going to put the property in a land trust, and then I am going to buy the beneficial interest in that trust for $60,000. Okay, so this plus this pays off the lenders up front. Then I'm going to say, I'm going to give you sell you the beneficial interest, or I'm going to do a lease with option for you to buy the beneficial interest back from me. So basically, I can create the equivalent of the economic numbers just without me having no exposure to foreclosure. Okay, lender gets his 70,000 that he needs back out. I have no exposure to foreclosure. That's how I can justify a little bit higher investment to value, ITV. So I buy the whole beneficial interest. So basically, I own the property. It is mine. And then I sell them the beneficial interest on an installment contract. If they will bring 10,000 down, they'll pay me $583.33 a month, plus whatever the equivalent of taxes and insurance are, like impounds, so that I don't have any out-of-pocket costs associated with it. So either I sell them the beneficial interest on an installment contract, or I do a lease option kind of thing with them. Okay, and maybe I'll shorten it to 36 months. I've got more at risk. I want to be at risk a shorter time, and I want to have more control of the property. So if anything goes sideways, I just take over lickety split, and there's no hassle and potential filing bankruptcies and blah 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 blah. Okay, so now we're at the point where it's for your questions. So any questions, comments? Do you have any of your own deals that you want to go over right now? I know right in the beginning, Ryan and I were talking about a deal in Costa Mesa that we thought was going to be great, but then his accountant killed the deal. But is there any, Ryan, do you have any other deals you want to talk over, or does anyone else that's on the line have a deal or potential deal they want to talk about?
I don't have anything.
Wow, there's a lot of weird noises. If you guys have deals that come up, if you're a member of my club, which you should all be who are on this call, just be sure to know that you can get a little bit of email and phone support when you have things going on. So thanks again, and until next month. And if you want your deal to be like an example that you're chewing on and want to use it for next week's, just email me all the details and we'll crunch it over, because a lot of times the things that you guys are dealing with individually are representative of a lot of questions and confusion that a lot of people have. So it's really, really helpful when we're working over your real life deals. So anyway, wishing you guys a really wonderful evening and a happy Easter. Take care. Bye-bye.